All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Also Curious. Today we'll have a tribute to Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman. We'll be talking about Wakanda Forever, the biggest movie in the world right now, and then we'll be paying our tribute to Chadwick Boseman. Of course, the movie does a great job, and we put together a little piece of our own. We will then be reviewing Phase 4 of the MCU, which is now wrapped up with Wakanda Forever, and then we will finish the show off with an episode 10 review of Andor. Well, some sacrifices were made, and that show is, looking better and better with each episode. So that's what's on the show today, which starts now.
You heard him. You heard Dan. That's here it is. This is the beginning of the show. It's starting right now. I'm Andrew Frankel. That was Dan. You met Dan. And today, Rolan isn't here. If you thought he might look a little different, it's because it's not him. We have a guest here today. This is Angelina Brower. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Well. We're going to do quite a bit of reviewing today, and that all starts with a tribute to Kevin Conroy, great voice actor. He was the voice of Batman, and for a long time. In the meantime, while you're here, make sure you interact with us. So we're on all the different stuff. We're on Instagram, Spotify, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and all the. So be a good person and join the conversation, do all that stuff. So it's a movie talk thing, but. Would you like to introduce yourself? Is there anything that people should know about you?
Yeah. Hi guys, I'm Angelina. I'm an actor, model, content creator, and now we're here. I'm from Florida, so I like the beach. I have a dog. I think that's me.
That just about covers it. Yeah. Well,
everything.
Thanks. We're excited to have you. And I don't know. Should we start with what other people have said to us this week? Dan?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, wait. Did you guys forget to introduce me? Oh.
No, I didn't. But
hello. I also exist in this world. So I don't mind. This happens every week. It's surprising. I always get left on the cutting room floor.
Oh no.
That's okay. I'm used to it. Anyway, where were we? Okay. We were doing open mic comment. You guys want to jump right into comment of the week? Let's do that.
I kind of would, just because it's I don't know. Has anybody hurt me this week? Is what I want. That's what I want to know.
I think the answer to that is an obvious yes. Just to give you some pretext though, we reviewed the Al Yankovic story last week, and let's just say that the internet didn't take too well to your critique of the movie. So here's a comment of the week.
Okay. Comment of the week. Bill Stevens. It was a fun parody of what idiotic celebs think they are. Important. It's 100 times better than you state. Okay. All right. I know what that was. I'm familiar with the idea of a parody. As I said, big Weird Al fan. Love Weird Al. I had much higher hopes for it. I thought, given the cast and the hype around it, it would be a higher quality film. And you're also looking at a guy whose favorite movie is Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox Story, which you want to talk about 100 times better. Go watch that one, and you tell me what a parody biopic should be. That's what I will say to that one. But thanks for commenting. We love hearing your feedback.
Angelina, what did you think about the movie? Because you weren't on the show last week. Did you watch it?
I haven't seen the movie. We were talking a little bit before we got here just about Daniel Radcliffe in general, and I would say I've been rewatching the Harry Potter movies, and Daniel Radcliffe since has just been not Harry Potter, just not so great. We're not the biggest. His acting career has kind of just gone downhill, and he hasn't really done anything to fix it.
Do you really think it's gone downhill? Because the thing, I
feel like people only cast him because they want people to laugh. I don't I
Wow.
don't think anybody takes him seriously.
I mean, so yeah, I mentioned he's said that because he was Harry Potter, he can take on whatever projects he wants. He can do the goofy stuff. Um, we mentioned was the Woman in Black. There was like
Yeah.
he thought maybe he'd go down this horror trail. I didn't see that working for him. I think he didn't either. Now he's kind of laughing at himself, playing flatulent corpses and I don't know, and Weird Al. So
I haven't seen the movie, so I can't.
movie?
Yeah, I'll watch the movie. I'll come back with you guys, and I'll let you know what I'm thinking about it. But Daniel Radcliffe, since Harry Potter, is just not it for me. I just don't take him that seriously.
Dan, did you end up watching the movie? Watching Weird Al?
I did not. I actually haven't gone to it. It's sort of, I think I only had I had enough time for one movie this week, and I was worried I was going to fall asleep watching that in theater. So I mean, I went and watched Wakanda Forever. Yeah.
Did you fall asleep?
No, I didn't. I thought I would. I didn't, which I'm glad, because we went to the 11 p.m. showing at the end of like a 15-hour day for me. So I was like, I hope
Commitment.
Yeah, I had a ton of coffee throughout the day. I had like a can of Monster and everything. So I was like, it will eventually kick in, right? And then, well, it did enough to keep me awake.
I didn't take you for a monster guy, but that's starting to settle in. It makes a lot of sense.
It's about convenience.
It really let me know who you are at a whole.
Dan, Dan's
really,
serious workaholic over there, and apparently a taurine addict as well.
Wow. After a 15-hour day, the commitment to go watch a 3-hour movie, I went to go see it at 7, and I was late to that movie. I was worried I was going to miss the intro, and I was just like, if I start this movie at 8 and go to the next showing, I might not survive tomorrow.
I was not prepared for it to be as long as it was, and I don't know. We'll get to the review aspect of it, but it was a long movie, and anyway, to get back to the Weird Al thing, it was based on the sketch from Funny or Die. It might as well have been the Funny or Die sketch, but they just dragged it out for an hour and a half instead of 3 minutes. And I will say, Radcliffe, in some scenes, he did actually feel like Al Yankovic. That's a challenge for somebody who was Harry Potter, I think. And I won't take it away from the guy's a good actor. It's just he's been choosing some odd stuff lately.
Well, and to get back to that, when he says that he can do whatever he wants now, does that mean like financially he can do whatever he wants now, or people just trust him to do whatever he wants now? Like, so he's not worried about whether or not his movie bombs? I don't know.
I mean, I guess it's a good flex to be like, yeah, I can take on silly characters. Yeah. But yeah, it was a week of some odd movies, some unexpected deaths. We lost Gallagher, who was actually featured in the Weird Al movie. Paul F. Tompkins played him in that barbecue scene. And Gallagher, for everybody under the age of 20, he was the guy who innovated comedy with mallets and watermelons. And you would go to his shows and he would smash watermelons with mallets. And that was revolutionary. And people would go to shows and they'd wear ponchos if they were sitting in the first couple of rows because they knew there was going to be a mess. And this was the second death I heard about this week. I was a bit more shaken by the loss of Kevin Conroy, who, for Batman fans, he was the voice of Batman in all animated, all video game stuff for about 30 years. And by all accounts, one of the nicest guys in the business, class act, and one of the first actors to ask a really solid question about Batman's character that changed the trajectory of it in all forms of media. And by that, I mean, he decided it was going to be one voice for Bruce Wayne and another voice for Batman in costume. that made a huge difference. So we will be paying tribute to him, I guess, right now.
Yeah, no, we just a quick piece from my end. I mean, I grew up watching Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, and it's like his voice is probably the most iconic voice that, like, I think I mentioned in our group chat earlier this week, to at least 2 generations of Batman fans. And
Absolutely.
he got to play a live action version in the CW Arrowverse's the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. And like, I think this week we've been getting news of like all these CW shows getting canceled, including a lot of the DC stuff, because they're moving
Yeah.
away from that kind of content. And yeah, I mean, I think they've been working on a new animated Batman show too. I don't think they approached him particularly for that voice at this point, but he played it in the games too. Like, I don't know if I think you mentioned that, Andrew, but yeah, absolutely iconic. He will be missed. I mean, that's one of those pieces of news that like hits you like. It took me a while to like process what, like, oh, Kevin Conroy passed away, but yeah.
Yeah, it stopped everyone in my circle dead in their tracks. I mean,
Yeah.
that's and he was young. He was only 66, and
Mm.
one of those taken too soon. But let's
Yeah.
take a look at what we had to say about Kevin Conroy.
A voice is the sound of a person's experience. In it are reflections of our upbringing, our influences, our pain, and the effect we aim to have on the people who hear it. And so, what experience would result in the sound of the night, the voice of vengeance, of Kevin Conroy? When confronted with the task of finding Batman's voice, the Juilliard-trained actor understood that he had a choice to make. Thinking beyond a superficial hero voice, he asked the logical question: how does he keep his identity secret? In a move that would be replicated endlessly, Conroy decided that Bruce Wayne and Batman would have 2 different voices. One, a reflection of high society affluence. The other, a pained growl projected back at the horrors of the night. The pain of so many friends lost to the AIDS epidemic, of a loving boy struggling to find peace in his unstable and strictly Catholic home, of an outsider accustomed to concealing and compartmentalizing his identity, translated seamlessly to the orphaned and misunderstood crusader. Aftershocks of Conroy's choice continue to reverberate through every incarnation of Batman. The truth has a tendency to resonate. And amazingly, he made Batman feel true.
Possibly the most anticipated Marvel movie of the year, I would say, came out this last week, and the numbers are good. The movie is also long, and it does pay a nice tribute to an actor who's become legendary in his own right. This was Wakanda Forever, and I definitely watched it. So without giving away my glowing review, what did you people think of this movie?
Where do you want to start? And I'll let you go first, Angelina, because you're new to the show. I know
Yeah.
you have a lot to say, probably, I'm assuming, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm probably going to have a kinder review than you two might. In general, I was really happy with the tribute that they did pay to Chadwick Boseman. I think Marvel was really challenged with how to replace the main character in a way that moves forward, but also sort of honors Chadwick and his passing. In general, I feel like as an actor, losing Chadwick Boseman felt really heavy in the community. I think he was gearing up to be like the next Denzel Washington. And I think he was just an incredible actor and an incredible human. He was already giving back so much to the whole. of the community and everything in that sense. Like, I think we lost him way too early. So I feel like how they chose to honor him both during, prior to, and after the movie was really, really wonderful. But then also just the movie in general, I think it wasn't bad. I liked it. I
Really?
did cry at the end. Yeah,
my.
I cried at. Am I allowed to give away spoilers? I mean, that's
Yeah.
fine,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, oof. Yeah, the kid got me because he
Yeah.
kind of looked like Chadwick Boseman.
That's
They
what
did pretty
everybody's
good on the
saying.
casting. And
Yeah.
I didn't cry before that. Like, I felt like, oh man, like heavy. My heart was heavy. But the kid at the end, they did a good job with casting, and that brought on the tears. I was like, oh no.
That
And
was a
just in
really
general, like,
I would have been okay if that had been the only tribute. I thought the stuff at the beginning, considering that they redid the entire Marvel intro with just him and it was quiet. So it was like you had to feel that going into the movie. And then the first 15, 20 minutes of the actual movie is dealing with the death. You see the mural of his face on the wall. There's a funeral. There's sort of this celebration, which was beautiful to watch and like really exciting. And I will say the movie itself was a spectacle and beautifully shot, really cool. But I thought, this is getting in the way of whatever story is here. And when I finished the movie, when it was over, I was like, what really happened? And I don't know if anything actually did, because the fight started, but it never really ended. They said, why don't we just not fight? And I don't know. I feel like we existed more in these worlds, but I didn't really learn anything. And I thought,
going into the movie, I think ultimately I kind of knew it was going to have to act as a transition period for the Black Panther franchise. And so I kind of walked into that sort of knowing that was going to that's what it has to be, right? You're transitioning from one lead to the next. It's going to act as a transition movie. I think in general, anyone who has sort of an idea of like how the storylines are going to work and how films are sort of laid out, they would know that too. And so looking at it as that is, I think it acted just as that. It's a transitional movie.
Okay, but
for the next 3 movies.
There, because it's like this was supposed to be the end of Phase 4. This was supposed to be grand finale, big, and there was the fight, anticlimactic. The actual falling action, like it didn't really give me any indication of what's coming next outside of a new Black Panther. But I really got to say, the what's her name, Julia Louis-Dreyfus character really bugged me. I just don't need
Allegra de Fontaine, the Kit Kat, the Hershey chocolate bar, the
all
whatever.
Of those scenes.
Her incredibly long name.
Yeah, and the purple forelock, that really did not help things in her case. That was obnoxious. Those scenes did not have to be in the movie.
Those two characters did not need to be in the movie. Totally unnecessary. Yeah.
No.
I mean, I think it acted sort of as a connector from the US to Wakanda, right? But I think it could have been like a mere phone call kind of situation. I don't think it needed to be more than it was. Yeah.
Did I have to know about like their love life and like all like it did not add anything for me.
I have to kind of agree with you there. I think the movie was likely longer than it should have been.
Yeah.
You look at all other like 2.5 hour movies and you're looking at these like incredible epic movies, like just movies that last throughout time. We're talking like Titanic. This wasn't one of those. You're right.
On that note, the trailer for this movie and the concept that we're going to go underwater, that was all really reminiscent of all the hype around the new Avatar movie coming out. And
it literally reminded me of Avatar. As I'm watching this movie, I'm like, blue people, Avatar.
blue people underwater. And it was like, this is even the trailers, the teaser trailers were very similar. They were instrumental, no dialogue, just images. And, you know, I really got to take issue with this. I will fine. They're mutants. They can breathe underwater. How do they hear each other?
I mean, I think that is different. I don't know.
No,
I think that's one of those things
you can change. I get it. You can write the science fiction that the biology has changed and they've mutated to be able to breathe underwater. Fine.
Not all of them even had blue skin, even though they said only Namor was different. But then when you go into Talokan, like there's some of the people that Shuri sees, they'd have like normal color skin versus like the people who are fighting have all blue skin.
And I'll say like the underwater sequence with the music and they're showing you the whole cityscape, that won me over. I was kind of enchanted by
Although
that.
I will say this, that's the one area where I know, because it's a natural comparison to what DC did with Aquaman, but in the world where the Aquaman movie exists, even though this movie took a much more realistic approach to how an underwater society, like what it would look like, there was like all kinds of like any kind of metallic structure, or it looked like there was they looked aged, and it had like algae growing in places. It didn't look super clean. It didn't look super bright. I liked that it was a more realistic approach to that. But at the same time, I think when you look at that and compare to like, because that's where my mind went, I was like, but like that Aquaman movie did some of that too. But oh my God, there was some incredible wonder. And then when you have seen that before, it's hard for me to look at this and be awed in the same way that Avatar or Aquaman tried to awe you with just the spectacle.
Well,
it
it definitely sets a bar for reference to see what can be done,
which is an unfair comparison. I mean, on its own, was great.
It's not an unfair comparison. They're coming out right at the same time.
Did you all notice that some of the actors in the background of those water scenes do look like they are holding their breath and struggling a little bit? I wanted to know how they filmed it. And I can only imagine that they had to have filmed it in some sort of tank, right? Probably. Some of the scenes.
It's probably a combination.
Some of those actors look like they're struggling. And I'm like, I don't
even think they probably shot it in water. That's just to me like looks like visual. I don't think so. I mean, okay, look, we didn't spend enough time in there. Okay, so the parts where they're like exploring like what Talokan's capital city looks like, which, by the way, can I just sidetrack a little bit? The whole country of Wakanda and Talokan seem like they're not even nation states, they're like city states because of how tiny they are. But anyway, whatever. But when you're in there exploring, and I think they're running across people who are just like, not running, swimming across people who are like the kids, for example, that come up to Shuri, and then they're like sort of swimming. I think those parts were probably filmed in water, because it's just like,
because you can see the hair. But to your point,
although they probably replace all the hair. That's all CG. Maybe. I can guarantee you they replaced the hair in at least half of those underwater shots. But like, I think the throne room stuff was probably not.
They distract you from the physical reality of it all with music that plays over everything. So you don't talk to those people who swim up to you.
Yeah, wish we did.
Right? And she's there wearing this scuba diving suit because the pressure will crush her bones, but not his, and not anybody else's down there.
Yeah, because they literally, apparently the whole society like is ingesting vibranium, and that protects them. I think that was the inference. Is that
they really they really didn't flesh out the reality of this?
Yeah, I was like, did they ever say that?
The more I think about this, everything underwater, I'm just like, that didn't make any sense at all. And really, the sound bothered me the most, because I was like, they put a filter on the voice, and it's like, it's a little hard to hear you underwater. And it's like that. I've tried to talk underwater when I was a kid. That's not what it sounds like. A lot more bubbles.
But it's a mutant. Like, come on. I think that is like,
you know
what bothered me the most about the movie. The villain himself, I can't even, what was his name? It was like
Well, he called himself Namor, and everybody else called him Namor.
His people called him Kukulkan, and then his enemies called him Namor. Which actually, I thought that the clever thing they did was how he got named Namor by his enemy, because like when the Spanish conquistadors, it's sort of like without love. because like last week on the show I was talking about like the way they're saying Namor as opposed to like with the rolling R's like Namor. It
Yeah.
kind of sounds like a telenovela character
Yeah.
name, and then like the origin of the name in the movies that comes from Spanish language of like, you know, to be with somebody without love or can't be loved, something to that effect. I was like, that makes all the sense in the world. That was kind of clever what they did there. So
I'll give him that whole sequence of his backstory was probably my favorite part of the whole movie. That was like some
But
good
I didn't like
storytelling.
him. I
Well, he
don't
was
think
the villain,
he's a
wasn't he?
strong. Yeah, I don't. But not even.
You didn't even like hate
I
him.
don't
Actually,
like him.
I
No,
disagree
I
with
don't
that.
think he's a strong enough villain to last the next 2-3 movies.
I don't think
Like
he
I
will.
think they intend for him
Oh,
to
I
be.
think
I get
they
I get
totally
the
built
feeling
him
this
up
was
to
a
be that.
one-off.
I don't
Didn't-
think he's a strong character. Like him himself, like I don't think he's a strong enough actor to sort of make me hate him. I just don't like him. I'm just like,
Yeah, they also cut off the wing on his foot, so I don't know.
I had a very
really
different
what he can
How
do
is he gonna
anymore.
happen?
Can I just take a few seconds to kind of give you guys like my overall thoughts on this? Because
Please, yeah.
I've been ruminating on this since, because like, you know, I went and saw it with my it was like a sibling trip. So like with my brother and sister, we got together. We are like, all right, like I think this is the first time we've done anything like that in like a long time. So we went and saw this together, and obviously, like I mentioned before, the show, well, to the people watching, this was like an 11 p.m. showing for me. So I was trying to like make sure that I'm staying awake and paying attention. But you know, the movie starts and it's really powerful in the beginning because you see them pay tribute. But I had a problem with the first scene to begin, like, because that scene seemed like it was contrived way to set up how they bring the herb back down the road, and a means for us to start caring about how Shuri directly failed to save T'Challa. But then for the majority of the movie, we totally forgot about that until the third act, she has to become the Black Panther. They kind of revert back to that setup earlier. Then throughout the course of the movie, I think when I walked out of the movie theater, I was like, the overwhelming thought in my mind was, what was missing in this movie was the deft touch of storytelling and the narrative focus that the first movie had. Where if you want to describe the first movie in a couple of sentences, you could say it was about T'Challa coming back and becoming a king, and then realizing that his own father wasn't exactly the good man that he thought he was, and then dealing with a problem where his own cousin was trying to take down and change what Wakanda was. That's what the first movie was about. This movie was about making Shuri the new Black Panther and giving her the same character journey that T'Challa had in the first movie, which was weird because she doesn't start in the same spot that T'Challa does in the first movie from where their character is. She's not a very likable character, and unfortunately throughout the movie she doesn't make that jump. And
well, who was the
list
likable character in this movie?
I actually liked Namor like by the end of the movie more because like he basically, okay, I'll get into it. Hold on one second. So this was about Shuri. Then the whole when the General Okoye gets fired by Ramonda, it was like a total like that. It was completely illogical because of how their relationship has been portrayed up until this point.
I gotta say,
I was like, whoa.
I don't like Ramonda.
And that was contrived
that performance
because they wanted to make her
melodramatic.
like the newest Wakandan Iron Man with the vibranium suit down the road, so they can have more characters to kill off in Secret Wars. And then when it comes to the rest of the story, I think M'Baku was underused. The best scene in the movie was when he comes in and heckle. I love when they're like, who, like they're heckling the other people in that room.
Yeah.
I was like, and then he's eating a carrot, like he gives no shit because like nobody can touch him.
He's definitely the comedic relief character in this movie,
but I was like, why make him just that?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And then the way that, okay, there's a couple of absolute moral dilemmas this movie poses. One moral dilemma is this idea of Namor says he comes back. He's like, I'm gonna be back next week, and you will fight with me in this war against the surface world, or I will wipe you, Wakanda, off the face of this planet. That right there is such a powerful moral dilemma that they completely fumble the rest of the way in the movie because of how they actually like resolve it. And then the whole Riri Williams Ironheart storyline did not need to be there. Like you said, Allegra de Fontaine and the other CIA agent, the Martin Freeman character, those scenes were complete. If you cut them out, I wouldn't like notice a difference.
Yeah,
literally.
Nothing happens. Yeah,
and
that's
and then
worth-
like at the end of the fight, like throughout the movie, we have this thing about these two cultures fighting each other, that like they fight with honor, like the blue big dude on the bridge, like, pick up your weapon, Yokoya, before like when she loses it, and they're like, I want to fight you and beat you with your weapon in your hand, only to like at the end, like Shuri is like Wakanda forever, and like literally is helpless, defenseless. Namor burns his back to the point where he's basically dead, and I'm like, I like Namor at this point better than you, because you clearly are too
okay.
dark.
In that last scene where they're fighting, she like gets the pole jabbed through her stomach. I literally laughed out loud.
How did she not die?
2 seconds. When 2
You
seconds
did not
later,
in the theater.
when she, oh yeah, when she 2 seconds later, after getting impaled, does this big flip and like is able to fight him, and I was like, I could not help it. I let out a big old guffaw right there, because I was just like, this movie has been so unrealistic, and that was the icing on the cake for me.
Yeah.
One more note.
Yeah. You go for it.
And this is the last thing I'm going to say about the underwater speaking thing. Really, it really bugged me. Brilliant opportunity
Go for it.
to do sign language. They totally missed that.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
I can see
We
that.
could have had an entire. I mean, you want to talk about inclusivity in movies? The deaf community would really appreciate some representation underwater. That could have been a slam dunk for them. They totally missed it, and instead they gave us, "Oh, I can't really hear you that well," and that was annoying. That was annoying to me.
Oh, no.
Okay,
I honestly, Lupita Nyong'o's character, I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly.
I think so.
I think out of all of the characters, I loved hers the most. I would
She's
have
criminally
preferred to
underused.
see her more.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
So underused.
she is
Ugh.
so beautiful. She is such an incredible actress. She like really draws your eyes, and I want to root for her
Yeah.
the whole way through. And then we only get little snippets of her, and I'm hoping that we'll get to see more of her in the next movies, especially as I'm sure these reviews like sort of roll out and people will talk about that. But I'm like, she's this badass assassin. Like, she could have helped you this whole time.
Yeah.
And y'all are really just struggling in the lab half this time. Also, the scientist.
The Riri Williams or Shuri?
No, the young
girl?
one at
The
MIT.
student.
The 19-year-old
Yeah,
girl.
I mean,
Riri Williams.
Yeah. She was. She was.
The whole
okay.
honestly,
Yeah,
there was
like-
not much of a plot to this aside from
They were
they
were just backdoor piloting her show in the movie. That's all it
Yeah.
was. Like,
It's
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
was, and that's why I kind of I disagree with the way, why attach a tribute to Chadwick Boseman to something so disjointed and so
Yeah.
all over the place,
yes.
and something that at the end of the day, what I will say, was underwhelming as a sequel and as a capstone on Phase 4 of the MCU. I'm a little disappointed.
I look at movies, my philosophy is when I walk out of the theater, the overwhelming feeling that I have, basically, because the thing is, people consume content and most people are broad strokes, like, what did you think? You're probably thinking like one or two very specific things, and that's or like overall like opinion of the movie when you walk out. When I walked out of the first Black Panther, I was like, this is such a wonderful world, and they told the most morally brave story. Like, I'll compare the first Black Panther to what Logan did, what the Dark Knight did, where they set up a moral dilemma for the characters, and then they did not shy away from making the hard choices at the end of the movie. This movie sets up a couple of moral dilemmas, like the dilemma of, do we hand over this 19-year-old girl and save millions of people, I'm assuming millions of people in Wakanda, and like a larger conflict in the world, or do we choose to say like basically for the greater good, I guess. And then the other one is Namor is like, you will fight with me or you will die. And so that's decisions that leaders have to make, and this movie completely fumbles both of those moral dilemmas by the end of it, whereas those previous movies I mentioned, they face it head on, with like Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger dying at the end of Black Panther, and how beautiful and how tragic, and you were like, there was no easy decision at the end of the movies, so you appreciate that the filmmakers made the one that maybe they felt was the best in the moment. And that's what, like, when I walked away from those movies, I was like, yeah. And you're thinking about, like, how would you solve this problem as a screenwriter? You're writing this. You're like, yeah, there's
Yeah.
no easy decision. This movie
So
completely fumbles that.
so let's, before we wrap everything up, can we take a look at just the numbers? I want to know, like, how's it
Oh
doing?
yeah.
What's the critical response been? Because all I really know at this point is what I thought of it, and yeah, now you do too. So, what are we looking at here in terms of box office numbers and review scores?
Yeah, so Rotten Tomatoes, it's 84% right now, 311 critic reviews, 95% audience rating with over 5,000 verified ratings. So by and large, people are liking it. Now, I did read some of the reviews. The good ones are also noticed saying some of the same things about like what we critique there. But, I think where they vary from the people who gave it a rotten review, which there's far fewer of, those people point out more of like the structural, the plotting, the screenwriting, whereas the people who really liked it were like, I love the Chadwick Boseman tribute. This feels like a good next step moving the MCU story forward. I just, I personally just thought like the story, this movie prioritized plot and moving the MCU story forward over like telling a good Wakandan story. So
I would
yeah,
definitely agree with that. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and I'm glad you do.
Yeah.
75% top critics, so a lower score for the top critics, which I look at
Mhm.
that score because to me that's important because those top critics are the ones who are the most respected and have the probably the longest and the best track records, and a larger percentage of them, relatively speaking, didn't give it as good of a score. This is a crowd pleaser of a movie simply because of the way it starts and the way it ends. And they tell you, like in movie, like, there was that what was that Nick Cage movie where he actually meets Robert McKee, Adaptation, where he says like you can basically mess up the entire film, but if you wow them in the end, you've got a hit. People will forgive anything. Unfortunately for me, this movie doesn't end the right way. And then even that post credit scene to me was like, oh, Kevin Feige just wants to make sure that, long after he's gone, this MCU has like 3 generations worth of superheroes ready so that, they gave Chadwick Boseman, which felt a little, I'm like, I hate it when you tell me plot by dialogue. And they did a lot of that in this movie at the beginning when they were talking about how T'Challa dies and how we're meant to feel about how they're feeling about it in mourning. I just thought that should have started with the funeral scene. Don't give me anything before that. Just start with the funeral. That's powerful. Go to the logo, start the story. And at the end, what they did was, I think, fine. Anyway, box office, you can see on the screen right now, 180 million, which Angelina, you pointed out, and as the article says, is a record for November. So
Yeah.
can you give us an idea of like what that means in context of like what was the record holder before and why this matters?
Yeah, I think you mentioned before Hunger Games was holding that record, right?
I think it was Hunger Games Catching Fire. So a Lionsgate movie, which
Yeah.
Lionsgate does not have a ton of record-holding
And a
movies across
sequel,
the
right?
box office. Catching Fire was the second movie, I think, right?
Yeah.
I think it
November.
was.
It's a good month for sequels. Take note,
Yeah.
movie makers.
So 180 million is what we're looking at the Sunday AM update, so this may change and move up or down, but 180 million falls right between where they were projecting. So they were projecting somewhere between 175 to 200 million, and so it falls right in the middle. The first Black Panther opened at like 202 million, so this is definitely lower than that, but it's right within the projection number. So like people are going to look at it and say, okay, you know what? Let's see what this does in the weeks to come. It's like, what kind of legs is it going to have? Is it going to 2.5x it, or that opening weekend number, or two, which basically means it's going to double it, or 2.5, times it. The international debut was a little lower because it's not playing as well internationally as the first Black Panther did. Not by much. I mean, 150 million is still good. So when you combine those two numbers of 180 domestic and 150 international, you're looking at a 330 plus million debut, which is fantastic. But we also had similar numbers for Doctor Strange 2, and even Thor Love and Thunder did similar numbers. The problem with those movies were they petered out before they got to the $1 billion mark. And Doctor Strange 2 got pretty close, but it didn't get there. So my concern is that if this movie doesn't, because I feel like a lot of the problems we pointed out, people won't notice on the first watch as much, but if you go and watch this movie 2 or 3 times, you will notice those more and more. So I don't know how well this is going to play. Plus the other thing is this, those other 2 Marvel movies from earlier this year, they're fun. I mean, yeah, Doctor Strange 2 gets pretty dark at times, but they're relatively fun to watch. So you can sit through those and watch maybe 3 or 4 times in the theater. I don't know. I mean, and the first Black Panther 2 was exactly that kind of movie. You can watch it many times. I
Yeah.
don't know
I
if
will
you can
also
sit
I
through
say
would
and
not
watch
go
this
back
many times.
You
and
know,
watch this again.
some
Yeah.
of the revenue from this is the fact that you're paying, $5 extra to watch it in 3D. And if there's
IMAX.
one more thing I
Yeah.
can berate this movie for, is that I put on the 3D glasses and it was so dark and it wasn't adding anything. I mean, every time I put on the 3D glasses, I literally, it felt like I was just wearing sunglasses in the theater and I couldn't see anything. So
Oh,
I'm
Los Angeles.
I was underwhelmed with the 3D. If you're gonna go see this movie, just see it as a regular 2D on the screen movie, because it's just it's not worth the extra money.
Yeah, I saw it in Adobe Prime, or no, not Prime, Adobe Cinema, which is, I guess, like a version of the premium format they have, which is it's a great format. Unfortunately, the seats when they recline back, they don't quite recline back all the way. So that was, to me, I was like, I don't know, it could be more comfortable.
Yeah. Well, so
Anyway,
final call on
yeah.
this. Was it a worthy sequel to Black Panther, in your opinion?
I thought this was underwhelming and rather disappointing sequel because, like I mentioned before, this movie tries to do way too much, whereas the first movie had a very good focus, like narrative focus. So larger MCU plot and moves forward, yes, in that sense, I guess it's okay because this movie connects to the larger MCU more than most Phase 4 projects have. But as a direct sequel to the previous film, I could have used a lot more than what this movie ultimately gave me. And then some
Yeah.
of what it gave me, it could have done a better job with. So
What it felt like to me, if it was like a move on a chessboard, it's like when you're 3 moves away from checkmate and you just start to play with pawns on the side. It wasn't a meaningful move in terms of advancing the plot or character development. It was really just sort of let's just keep the game going a little bit longer.
Yeah, like as I said before, I think it ultimately was just a big transitional movie. And I think maybe their biggest mistake was making it a transitional movie versus like the sequel to Black Panther.
Well, I think that puts a pretty good cap on it.
That's a very kind way of putting it. I like how you're just like, yeah,
I told you I was going to be nicer than you guys.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, we needed somebody a bit nicer. we've been a little brutal lately, but if you're going to go and see this movie, tell us what you think. Tell us if you agree. Tell us if you have some other alternative to talking underwater that makes a lot more sense, because I'm dying to know. And in the meantime, comment, like, subscribe, be our friend, be part of the conversation, be part of our movie fan community. This next, we did our own tribute to Chadwick Boseman. It's shorter and I think pretty tasteful. So we hope you enjoy that. A look back at his life, his legacy, and what he brought to the screen and beyond. Here's our tribute to Chadwick Boseman.
Character, while perceived on the outside, can originate from deep within, from a performance perfected with grace and style, or the whims of a moment's chaos. It is an actor's job to choose which path to take, so the resulting performance can resonate with truth. The discovery and mastery of these approaches is exemplified in the life and work of a playwright and director who only intended to dip his toe into acting, to better understand actors. But it is precisely this curiosity to dive deep with empathy that makes one an actor with the passion and grace of Chadwick Boseman. From the outside in, Boseman may be best known as the superpowered hero of a fictional African utopia, the honorable protector of Wakanda, and a pillar of justice in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Beneath this outer shell is a carefully crafted accent that never left his lips during filming, the study of the Xhosa language, and the deep exploration of his own African lineage and history that pervaded his writing and portrayals of world-changing historical figures whose stories were inseparable from the story of their severed African roots. The details of Jackie Robinson's run and his swing, the electricity of a live James Brown concert, and the restraint of a young Justice Thurgood Marshall were revived on screen through the dedication of an actor who made their study a priority. Go a little deeper, and you'll find a man who called out the ignorance of Hollywood's stereotypical and superficial black characters, or mere exclusion of black actors where historically appropriate, that would have otherwise gone undetected. For a hip-hop playwright who had risen to prominence with an unprecedented rhyming play around the subject of police brutality long before it entered the public consciousness, there were more thoughtful choices to make regarding the backstory of a young black man than the recycled one of condescending assumptions. From the inside out, there is a kernel of an intention at the center of an artist's soul to express the richness of a culture shaken and displaced by history, to show the triumph of greatness in the face of adversity, and to set an example of what it means to act with dignity and honor.
Well, that's kind of a wrap on Phase 4 of the MCU. This was a long year of a lot of really hyped up movies that honestly didn't take us that far. I'm looking back just at what I watched. I saw Wakanda Forever. I saw Thor: Love and Thunder, Doctor Strange. What was that one called? And all the way back, I think I've seen everything in theaters since the last Spider-Man movie, No Way Home. And that was the high note for me. That was actually a good movie standing on its own, but that actually felt like an event. Everything else pretty underwhelming. And in the meantime, we had She-Hulk, and that was that was not great either. So, I mean, let's sort of unpack it. What did we gain from Phase 4?
Actually,
Just silence. I'm like complete silence. I just kind of feel like Marvel has just become this crazy cult, and they're releasing so much content that it's impossible to watch all of it unless you make Marvel your full-time job. And yeah, like I've watched a couple episodes of some of the shows, and it's like you said, She-Hulk. It was like, what has happened to the whole Hulk?
It was
like franchise of Marvel.
Yeah, this was a rough time to be a superhero because everybody's laughing at you now. You know, we've gone beyond being snarky Iron Man or Deadpool and having self-awareness, and now you're a joke. You know, Andrew Garfield in Spider-Man was a joke because they were acknowledging his franchise was the least successful. And Thor: Love and Thunder,
they should have been doing that.
Thor: Love and Thunder, it wasn't an action movie. It wasn't a Marvel movie. It was about this guy finding love.
I specifically didn't go see it because the reviews immediately afterwards were like, Natalie Portman's back, but it was weird. Like it was super weird. It wasn't. And so I haven't seen it because the reviews were like, just wait for it to come out. Maybe don't go to theaters to watch it.
If there's one thing that really got run off the rails in Phase 4, I think opening up the multiverse Pandora's box made things a lot more convoluted. Really, it brought up some continuity questions and errors between, shows and movies. And we've said it a million times here, but like the brand of the MCU is hyper continuity. Everything fits in, everything makes sense if you're paying attention.
That's the thing at this broad level with and every time they open up a new show, a new movie, a new franchise, it makes it harder and harder and harder. I mean, almost impossible to protect the continuity across all movies. There's no way. Like, there's just no way. And they keep making it harder. And I think focusing on the broad picture rather than like making each movie its own wonderful film as a standalone film. And I feel like we've gotten away from that. Honestly, I would say after everything after Endgame is just too much.
I mean, Endgame should have been the end. And now it's a matter of inventing new foes and finding reasons for people to interact. Finding a new Black Panther because continuity can't exist without that actor, they've decided. And they're writing themselves into a hole where everything needs to be these heavy CGI movies where everything's shot on a green screen. And they've gotten so wildly out of control that the stories and the characters have become totally unrelatable.
Yeah, I think you're also in that losing a lot of what made Marvel great. Like Mark Ruffalo in Hulk. Those were great movies. You know, I think Hulk came out when I was like 10 or 11. Like, it came out a good while ago. Iron Man, you're talking like incredible movies. That, to me, when you look at sort of like the Marvel formula, everything changed after Iron Man. I mean, even
that's
Captain
where they
America.
got their, that's where they developed this tone where they could be humorous and the superheroes could be regular people, but with superpowers. And that was appealing, but they've really overplayed their hand there, where now every character speaks the same way. They all have the same sense of humor. And by the way, in Wakanda Forever, anytime they tried to do comedy in those scenes where they're talking about like shades of lipstick or something, I was like, you guys have no gift for comedy. This is not a funny scene. It was trivial. You want to talk about stuff that could have been cut out to make that, a reasonable duration. That you could have cut the comedy there. It didn't add much.
But I think also it's trying to play into this commercialized formula that Marvel has created and tried to keep alive. But yeah, I think in some ways Wakanda Forever really overplayed that. Whereas in the previous movies, like Michael B. Jordan is in himself like almost kind of funny. Like, even though in his script, in his character, in his choices, he was such a good actor that I think it made it funny. I think Marvel is kind of trying to get more into the number side. I think it's becoming so commercialized. They're only focused on like what's going to be catchy for the moment. And they're stepping away from people that can really bring the stories to life. Like, the reason I haven't seen a lot of these Marvel movies is like, I don't want to see Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Like, I'm sorry, I don't. Like, I still kind of miss Tobey Maguire. And Andrew Garfield is an incredible actor. Like, I don't really know why they didn't keep going with that. I think as far as a casting choice, Andrew Garfield makes more sense after Tobey Maguire.
There's some hope. There's been rumblings about them bringing him back for another project.
But then there were rumors this week that Tom Holland has officially signed on for the 4th Spider-Man movie, which, water is wet, that was going to happen after that last movie made like $2 billion. I mean, and my 2 cents on this would be, I think after Endgame, what they should have done is looked inward and started to go back to what made Phase 1 and Phase 2 so good, which is where they were giving, like you said, Angelina, like they were telling these stories that work really well on their own without necessarily having to build towards something. I mean, here's the thing. We all kind of knew at some point after, like, I think Thor and Captain America at least were coming out, they're building up to the Avengers. They had announced it. This is where we were going. Edward Norton was getting recast with Mark Ruffalo to play the Hulk in the Avengers movie. All of that stuff was happening. And they were like, as long as these individual movies don't like totally bomb, which one those movies didn't all make a ton of money. I think only really the Iron Man trilogy in Phase 1 and 2 were like all really super successful. The Captain America his first movie and the first 2 Thor movies weren't really all that good in terms of the money they made, but they were like generally well liked.
my biggest issue with the Captain America casting was that he was already in the Marvel universe in Fantastic Four, and they just rewrote him. They were like, no,
but they don't count that because that was Fox.
Sorry.
So that wasn't Marvel
but
Studios.
no, it's a good point, because if they can bring Tobey Maguire back for Spider-Man No Way Home from the Sonyverse, they could bring back Chris Evans as the Human Torch.
Well, they're using the whole multiverse idea of variants and all that. But the point I was trying to make was essentially the fact that they should have this is something that Shang-Chi did well. I think Shang-Chi is a great example of what the best of Phase 4 looked like, which there wasn't a whole lot of, but I think Shang-Chi to me was my favorite Phase 4 thing. That, Miss Marvel, and both of those projects, TV show and movie, what they did well was they developed the character they introduced, the world of that character, and they focused on that. They weren't trying to backdoor pilot another character's like project down the road. They weren't trying to do all these connections to introduce, like, at the end of She-Hulk, Scar. Oh, boom, there you go. Ugly haircut. Hey guys, I'd like to meet my son, Scar, for like half a second. I'm like, why? No need. Like, do it somewhere else. All of that stuff that like She-Hulk did, Eternals did that movie's terrible. I'm sorry. Like Chloe Zhao, I don't know how she produced such a turd, but whatever.
Let me take you through how one produces a turd. But
Doctor Strange was too much. There was way too much going on. But again, the biggest point of this is Marvel, with every, like you said, with every project in Phase 4, they either trying to introduce a new character or some new piece of mythology that in some direct or indirect way clashes with the already pre-existing mythology of the MCU. Whether it's the Eternals and there's a huge thing sticking through like half of the Earth's oceans that should have broken the planet in half, even if it showed up that much. I'm like, sure, so he didn't come out all the way, but that's enough to like crack the blow the planet apart, whatever. Then the huge Egyptian gods in Moon Knight. I'm like, how does this all play together? It doesn't play together.
Well, that's sort of what we've been seeing. We had Egyptian gods in Moon Knight, and we had Greek gods in Thor: Love and Thunder, and it does sort of feel, like you said, a little culty. We are getting, it seems like what they're setting up is it's going to be superheroes versus gods, and now that we have this Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special coming up, I would not be surprised if Santa Claus makes an appearance. He probably will. He's mythical.
He's a character in the Marvel comics,
and he is in the Marvel universe. So
I will say, I think those movies are still some of my favorite because they're so funny. Like Chris Pratt is so
I love Guardians
funny.
of the Galaxy. The first one was hilarious.
Also, Groot is just so cute. Like, I can't. But I think not enough of those movies, like not enough of the new Marvel movies have that. Like, it's missing the sort of like star quality about either the lead, the sort of even just the relationship between the cast. It's missing something.
It's the watchability. I think that's what it is. Yeah. Like, I say this to everybody. I'm like, you put on Guardians of the Galaxy on repeat, I'll watch it 4 times in a row. But I can't say that about most Marvel projects. But there's a few, and the few that I can, like Shang-Chi, for example, is another one. They are the best of the MCU. The first Iron Man movie I can probably watch 3 times in a row because it's an enjoyable.
You think Shang-Chi is one of the best?
Yeah. Wow. Oh yeah. I thought it was. Speaking of best or worst of Phase 4, Shang-Chi to me, along with Miss Marvel, they may be like 1A, 1B for me, were the 2 best things to come out of Phase 4. And then maybe I would put No Way Home, Spider-Man No Way Home at number 3. That's my ranking at the top.
So what I would say is that in the way that we watch these movies has also changed, because in Phase 1 through 3, we had good stories, good characters, relatable and familiar arcs that we could follow. And now we watch these for cameos, for post-credit scenes, and for little Easter eggs. We don't watch these for the plot anymore, and they're not made so much for the plot anymore. And I think that's causing them to slip. I think that's where DC is gaining ground. And if there's anything that we can hope for in the next phase, it's that we should see more relatable characters. We should get back to single character arcs because not everything is connected, and nor does it have to be. And we can tell better stories going forward. I think that's my big critique of Phase 4, if I could put it all in one thing.
How would you treat Phase 4 as a whole, Angie? Like, do you think it's the worst?
I haven't watched
so
most of them. Yeah, I haven't watched most of them because the reviews are kind of they're all kind of. I did watch Shang-Chi and I did think it was good. Do I think it was one of the best Marvel movies? Oh, no.
Come on, the bus
That's why I'm
sequence, like when they go to the I liked it.
So I think actually with that, I have a lot of friends near and dear to me that take martial arts, and they were just like, none of that was accurate or just even kind of possible. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. And if you're gonna do a movie that is like based in martial arts, you should get it right. And I was like,
I think there was more movie martial arts. Like, what was the like Michelle Yeoh? What's the really famous martial arts movie Michelle Yeoh was in back in the day? You know, when they're flying around all
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
Yes. I think a lot of the fight choreography in Shang-Chi was sort of going for that effect, more so than like a more grounded, I don't know, like Ip Man, like martial arts.
Well, Dan, what about you? If there's can you sum it up? Was it even a good phase? Are we richer for having lived through this year of Marvel content?
I think this is the beginning of the end because Kevin Feige's clearly overstretched. You could see that in the average quality of each project. You see now we saw that Blade was apparently like meant to film a month later, but then the director walks away. The script is a mess. Marshall Ali's not happy. They're going to hire a new director, and the movie got pushed by months, and then it totally pushed like everything else around it forward as well. That to me is again another sign of Kevin Feige being overstretched. I think what made everything up until Endgame magical was they weren't doing too much, especially not too quickly. Now they're doing twice as many projects a year, like half a dozen shows, half a dozen movies. They have control to even more characters. So now we can't get an X-Men movie that looks completely different from the MCU anymore, which I think is a detriment because Disney's sort of like creating this monopoly. And as long as DC hopefully this is why I'm really hoping DC continues to like do better and better, because I think the more the MCU monopolizes the superhero genre, which is the most profitable, the biggest genre in all of Hollywood today, I think it's bad. Like, it's kind of like, any monopoly is bad for the industry that it monopolizes. MCU monopolizing the superhero genre is becoming more and more a detriment to it than a benefit. And Phase 4 was a great example of what happens when you basically put your business priorities ahead of telling good stories. And that's what a lot of those projects got dragged down. Looking ahead to Phase 5 and 6, I feel like we're going to see much of the same. I mean, I'll put up this graphic right now very quickly to just take a look at what's coming in Phase 5. And by the way, forget like all of the logos and everything you're seeing. Consider this. Everything in Phase 5 is going to happen between 2023 and 2024. This is just 2 years worth of Marvel projects. And there's a couple of things that are missing.
Daredevil.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's 2 years. Everything in 2 years. Yeah.
That's kind of nuts. But also I have a question about the numbers. How much money are they spending producing all of this content, and what are the returns? Because I somehow can't imagine that they are making that much net profit in the last phase.
Well, anything to do for Disney Plus, that's they account from an accounting standpoint. I'm sure they have ways to determine whether that was a money loser or not. But it's
big hit,
box
a lot of
office
money.
Spider-Man No Way Home was huge, but you got to look at it like from a business standpoint. The profits were split between two studios, Marvel Studios and Sony. So as good as it was and as profitable as it was, I mean, they still on average are spending now upwards of $200 million per movie. Thor: Love and Thunder was over $200 million to make, probably $100 million to market. They made like $800 million or under that at the box office. It actually made less than Thor Ragnarok, which was, I think, a far superior film. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness started out so well that it should have like actually finished somewhere north of $1 billion. It just petered out at like 950, 960 million. So its margin of profit was much lower. Shang-Chi and Black Widow were basically, and Eternals box office got destroyed by the pandemic. Unfortunate, be that as it may. And then when you look at what we're seeing with Wakanda Forever now, I'm concerned because the watchability of this movie is not nearly what it was for the Academy Award nominated Best Picture category. Like, it was a Best Picture Academy Award nominee, the first Black Panther, and it made like 1.3 billion dollars. I don't think Wakanda Forever is going to get to that number. And
it doesn't have that.
It
doesn't have a classic feel to it. It's not the type of thing that somebody's going to watch over and over again. And if they had made it a movie just about a day in the life of Wakanda, and they really just explored the world, that might even be more interesting, because that's sort of the appeal, is like they built that entire culture and they wrote the music and they created the costumes and the customs. And it's like,
I thought the soundtrack was better for the first movie. The costume design just became like
I did like the soundtrack though. I think
it was good.
The Marvel movies do a good job with the music in a way a lot of new movies don't.
But okay, are you talking about the soundtrack, like the songs, or are you talking about the score?
No. The score, like the score of the movies. They do a good job with that.
I'd argue otherwise.
Especially,
I think DC does a better job with those. Yes. The Man of Steel score was superior to anything Marvel's done, minus the Avengers theme. I think the only truly iconic music, like score, to come out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the Avengers theme. And then I would maybe put Black Panther's like music, because like Ludwig Göransson is just an absolute genius. Besides that, I feel like there's much more the most iconic film music from the superhero genre. I think 5 out of like maybe like 4 out of the top 5 come from DC, whether it's the Danny Elfman Batman theme, both the Hans Zimmer as well as the John Williams Superman theme, which are like so fundamentally iconic that you ask billions of people around the world, they will know. And that's just my opinion. Again,
if you got Hans Zimmer or Danny Elfman on it,
you're not quite
getting a good product.
Heck, the Spider-Man music from the Sony movies is better than anything the Spider-Man in the MCU has done. Yeah.
Well, okay. I think we've gotten off topic here a little bit, but if you're watching this and you're like, hold on a second, you jerks, Phase 4 was clearly the best. Make sure you fight me in the comments. I'll fight back, and tell us what you thought.
You can fight me in the comments on that. I'll fight you if you think
true.
Phase 4 is the good phase of the MCU.
Tell us what you think. Tell us if you agree, and be sure to like, subscribe, share, and follow us on all the stuff. We are on all of the stuff. Look for us So Curious. And right before we close out this episode and talk about next week, we're going to take a look at this latest episode of Andor on Disney Plus. I'm not following along. I'm not a Star Wars guy, but luckily people on our team are Star Wars guys. Let's see what they had to say.
People are standing up.
Andor episode 10. Let me just start by saying, if this episode was the finale, I would have been completely satisfied. That was a perfect ending in the beginning, and the fact that we have a few more episodes to go is just like a huge bonus. It feels like Christmas, and well done again, Star Wars, Andor, Tony Gilroy. Good job. Back in Narkina 5, Andy Serkis's character, his face is it says it all. Like, he no longer follows the program. He's not going to stay and die or be released only to be put back into prison. He's done, and Prison Break happens, and I'm really glad we didn't have to wait too long for that. They break out and they succeed. The Prison Break itself, and I should really stop calling it Prison Break, it was good. It wasn't bad. It was just nothing exciting. I feel like the robbery, the actual heist, money heist they did, a few episodes prior, that was a lot more exciting. There was a lot more tension. And all the scenes in Narkina 5 leading up to the Prison Break were immensely intense, and they really made you like hold on to the edge of the seat because you didn't know what's going to happen. You were scared for every single person in that prison, and it didn't feel like a flop. There was no fireworks, and I suppose it's a good thing. It's like not everything has to be just epic and grand. Andy Serkis's speech, obviously, to the rest of the building, where he motivated everyone to just like start running. Like there's one way out, and they all climbed upstairs to get out, and Andy Serkis can't swim. He's we didn't see him die, so I don't think he's dead yet. I think he's gonna make a comeback, but even if he doesn't, it was a really nice way to go. So Mon Mothma and her childhood friend Toy Koma meet Davos Skalden. So Mon was very hesitant from the beginning. She called him a thug, and yeah, probably for the right reason. He doesn't want any payment. He doesn't want any monetary payment for the services he will provide, meaning he's gonna help Mon with the financing and keep it out of the books of the Empire. So in return, he suggests to bring his son to meet Mon's daughter, and it got a very House of Dragon all of a sudden. It's not as forced, he just suggested, he just wants to introduce him to her. But yeah, we'll see what's going to happen. Obviously Mon kicked him out, but I'm not saying she's helpless, but she needs to think outside of the box, and I suppose a meeting can't hurt. But the absolute highlight and even grander thing than the prison break itself was Stellan Skarsgård's character Luthen meeting his double agent, who we all well know from the ranks of the Empire. Lonnie is the guy who's been working for years for the Empire, as we find out, and he has a daughter, and he's been feeding Luthen and the rebellion all the information for years, and he was there on his own, and he wants out, and it's very clear why he wants out, and we shouldn't blame the guy. It must be pretty lonely, and living in a constant fear and having Dedra Miro on your back. It can be stressful. I talked about Dedra Miro and how she's just terrifying in the previous episode. It just shows that rebellion is not all peachy. It shows how there is no such thing as good and evil. You are forced to do things that are bad for others. And Luthen mentions it, that he's using the tools of his enemy in order to defeat them. It's heartbreaking knowing that every single person that, helps rebellion, and something that Andor as a series has been constantly exploring, is they sacrifice everything in order to make it work. And as Luthen says, calm, kindness, kinship, love, no inner peace. I share my dreams with ghosts. I yearn to be savior against injustice without contemplating the cost. I really like it. It's Star Wars kind of going back and debunking this whole idea of good is not good, evil is not evil. Those things are going to intertwine. We get to fill in a lot of holes. It's not necessarily inconsistencies in the plot or in a character's arc, but it's just a deeper analysis, deeper understanding and psychology into what took the rebellion to start, to ignite, to form, and eventually to succeed, and how much people had to sacrifice. It echoes and ties really nicely to what we saw in Rogue One, and how the mission was built on hope. Melshi and Andor running off to, the darkness and 3 moons, like very epic shot. It would have been a completely perfect ending, and the fact that we have a few more episodes to go is just like a cherry on top. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this episode. May the force be with you. See you next week. Bye.
Next week is going to be real interesting, so make sure you come back here. We're going to take a look at what is probably the most exciting movie of this week, The Menu, coming out. It's kind of a thriller. It almost looks like a really, really dark game of Clue, where if you could die. It's got Anya Taylor-Joy and Ralph Fiennes. Fiennes? I don't know how to say it. I'm not a guy like that, but really cool cast, interesting cinematography, just a new concept for it. Do you know anything about it, Dan, aside from what you've seen in trailers? Is there anything that's like would give people a reason to go see this, aside from sheer
Um,
curiosity about something really different?
I don't think I've really heard. Okay, so I've watched the trailers. Read a little bit about it, but nothing beyond like the official synopsis really. I haven't really looked into whether like what is exactly happening, because I feel like the mystery that the movie is teasing in the trailer, which by the way, the trailers, like the first trailer for this movie was sort of like skirting like a lot of the this movie gets violent at some point. The first trailer was very much made it seem like, oh yeah, this is gonna be some mystery, and you have all these A-list actors like Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, and Ralph Fiennes, who, well, you can refer to him as Voldemort, he who must not be named, or M, if
You
that's
Yeah.
just
easier to
named
pronounce.
him.
Yeah. Sorry. Fingers crossed I don't get attacked tonight. I don't mind the scar on my forehead. Anyway, so the first trailer was teaser trailer was decent. Every trailer since has been way like better, I think, and that's not to like say the first trailer wasn't good. I just think this movie, everything that they put out for marketing this movie, makes me more and more excited about it, because this just looks like. I mean, sure, they can fumble the mystery, whatever the mystery ends up being. But walking into this, I love mystery thrillers. That's like my genre, like one of my main genres. So I'm
I
all
don't know
for
if
that.
it's going to be so much of a mystery as much as like a suspense thing, because even in the trailer, we kind of get this sense that we're going to get let in on whatever this guy's plotting. And I haven't seen a really good suspense movie in a while where you know what's going to happen the entire time and you're just waiting to see how.
Yeah, I mean,
So
um, I feel like the trailer at least implied that Ralph Fiennes' character is sort of in a forced predicament, that he may be like on the surface causing a lot of like pain to the other. I don't know. He maybe is the antagonist on the surface, but in fact he's sort of like in being forced to do things, and then somebody else is pulling the strings. At least that's what the trailer implies. I don't know how dark this movie's gonna get, but I'm all for getting
I
dark from
think
like
it looks pretty
thematic.
dark. Have you heard anything about it, Angelina?
No, but honestly, anything with Anya Taylor-Joy in it, I'm in. I am
Same.
such a big fan of her. I think she's such an interesting actress to watch. Everything she's been in, I don't know. I will go see it. Period. I will see this movie.
Talented.
Um,
I first saw her in Split, and that was
yep.
she did a wonderful job there. And most recently, I saw her in Amsterdam, and I really liked her character in that movie as well. She's constantly
Yeah,
changing her hair color, keeping you guessing.
I didn't even know she was in the
she's
movie. I was like,
really
wait, is that
incredible.
her? Yeah.
Yeah, she's beautiful. She's incredible. She makes really great choices.
Mhm.
And then just in general, she's a bit of a chameleon as
Yeah.
far as what she plays. Everything, she's kind of always like the mysterious, like beautiful creature as far as the movies go and all of the shows go. But yeah, I just think she's a great actor, so I'm always going to go see anything she's in. I think she's going to be here for a while. She's going to be here to stay.
Definitely. Definitely. And then in addition to this, we're doing some more Bollywood Virgins watch. I'm slowly losing my Bollywood virginity after a year of these, but I've
seen nothing.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're in
I've
for a
seen
treat.
none of
We got
these.
a real
I
Bollywood
was like,
virgin here.
yeah, literally. I'm like, what?
I'll tell you, it's a culture shock, and it also will change your perspective on performance and on acting. But next week, we're going to take a look at Three Idiots. I know nothing about this movie, which is usually how I go into these things. And we'll take a look and see exactly how I react to this. I recognize these actors, though, and I like them. So it looks entertaining. It looks kind of silly. And with a name like Three Idiots, how could it not be? I'm excited to see that. So
Bollywood
join us
version of
back
the
here.
Three Stooges.
Yeah, maybe. Is it a Three Stooges kind of thing?
I don't know.
That's the implication initially, but like the story covers a lot more. Like I think the one thing that we have agreed upon when we have done any other Bollywood movie, at least the ones that we have watched and reviewed on this show, is that these Bollywood movies tend to be these full meals where you're not just getting like a straight up thriller or like a horror movie or like a romance or romantic comedy. You get something that feels like it gives you a little bit of everything in a good way. They don't feel necessarily jumbled. Like, and actually, one thing that to point out, Andrew, that's Rajkumar Hirani, who's the same director that directed Munna Bhai MBBS, which we watched last week, is the same director who directed this movie. And of course, you saw Lal Singh Chadda, which was an official remake of Forrest Gump, which we reviewed earlier, and had the same main actor, Amir Khan, in it, who's in this movie too. So yeah, for Angelina, this might all be like foreign language because, of course, I don't think you've seen any of those movies that we have reviewed on the show before, but
none of these.
I will say this movie, when it came out, broke all kinds of box office records for Bollywood, became the highest grossing. It became like the Avatar of Bollywood at the time. It was that big compared to everything else. And for a while it held the record.
And it's called Three Idiots.
Yeah. And then Bollywood movies like started making more money in average, so now it's sort of down the list. But this, and not only that, but critically, this movie was praised like a lot because this movie tells a story that focuses on the pressures that the young people in India are put under by their parents and relatives to succeed in school and get these like doctor and engineer degrees and do well in life and be incredibly successful. And if you're not anything but a lawyer or a doctor or some kind of engineer who's earning a 6-figure salary, you're nothing. And it's that culture that it critiques, and it does this in a way which, you know, there's a lot of comedy involved. A lot of these are like stills from the same song essentially. So this movie does get goofy at times, but then when it's at its best is when it's dealing with the human emotion and drama, which I think Bollywood does in a more
capture
way than Hollywood does.
In a way that Hollywood hasn't really captured since the 90s. It's really interesting just to see the sensibility of these types of movies. When did this one come out?
I believe this came out in like 2012, 2013. So it's much more recent than a lot of the other ones that we have done, which were like mostly 2009, actually. Yeah. So the same year as Avatar.
Okay.
I just made the Avatar comparison for some reason, not realizing that it came out in the same year. But yeah, a lot of the other movies we saw were like early 2000s. I don't know if you did anything from the 90s yet, but this is relatively recent. I mean, about 13 years ago recent. But yeah.
Well, it looks like an interesting watch. I will certainly come back and tell you what I think about that whole thing. This will be an interesting show. We got a couple good things coming up next week. So meet us back here, same time, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, on all the different streaming things. We're out there, and we're here for you to interact with. So be here. That's it. Just be here. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to put the thanks for watching thing up.
Well, yeah, but also thank you for watching.
Goodbye.
Bye.